Okay, let's talk about the twins. Oh, Lord. The Shannon twins. They were on The Secrets of Playboy this last episode, which was, I think, episode 11. And yes, I wear my makeup to bed. I'm so lazy. I just do not feel like taking it off. And I attempted to straighten my hair, and it just didn't work out. So, yeah, this is why I have adult acne, because I get lazy. But I had an interview and I wanted to look decent. Most of the time I don't wear makeup. So I wanted to talk about this sooner, but I was going to kind of lump it in with the other episodes. I was going to do episode 11, 12, 13, whatever, however they have, however many they have, I should say. Okay, so they're the Shannon twins, and this is quite a story. Wow, they have such a good spray tan. Okay, this is a picture of them with a creepy old Hef, and I think that is Crystal. Yeah, Crystal Harris. I'm sorry, I'm just gonna say it. She's like the ultimate gold digger. Just, there's no other word to describe it. There really isn't. Somehow she got him to marry her. I think it was a few years before he died. I don't even know. I'm gonna have to do a whole show just on her. And I know that sounds horrible for me to say that, and I've been really trying not to judge any of them really hard because I know that everyone has a story, and I know that there's different ways to abuse people, and usually it has to do with power. And she had a lot of power, he had a lot of influence, he had a lot of money. A lot of celebrities were in and out of his house at parties and what have you. Not just, like has-beens or whatever. Everybody went there. And I was talking to a friend earlier, and she used to go there all the time, but on Sundays, which I didn't even know there was a special day where it's not as bad as the others, I guess. She used to go on Sundays, and she would go during the day and sometimes at night. And I think it was movie night. And she said it was like normal. She said that Hugh, I guess, didn't allow drugs when he was slipping people drugs all the time. He was roofing people. And there's too many people for it to be not true. It's, if there was just one person that was accusing him, I would be like, you know, just like with Alfie Hoffman, I was like, there's one person that said something like that. One person. And this person's been known to kind of lie, unfortunately. But with Hugh, there's like many. There's a lot. And these are people that were in his inner circle. They're not just people that went to his parties. So I think he had like a way with people when he was alone with them. It was a completely different persona. Just like he had the show, all of these different people will come on the show and they would act differently than they do in normal life. And I think that's what happened here. The Victor, no, for some reason I was thinking of the Victor twins, and that's from Bad Girls Club. I want to talk about that. Let's talk about that one day. That was funny. That show was funny. It was hardcore. I used to be a fan. I don't even know how that's possible, but it was entertaining. All right, so Carissa, Carissa and Christina, they're the twins, the beautiful blondes. They were only around 18 or 19 when they ended up in the mansion. And they were huge fans of the show, The Girls Next Door. And as I said, I didn't watch that show because I was creeped out by it. I knew what it meant for him to have them as girlfriends. You know what I mean? When he called you his girlfriend, it wasn't just for play. Like, he meant, you're my girlfriend, you're going to sleep with me, we're going to be like together. You can't be with anyone else, but I could be with whoever I want to be with. And so the Shannon twins, they talked about how they were naive enough to believe that being his girlfriends meant that just on the show for presentation that they would be his girlfriends, but they didn't actually believe that they would have to sleep with this old man. Um, I believe them. I do. I don't think that their intention was to. Like, they had a show. There was a freaking show. It's. I hate E. I hate the channel E, and it's because they create monsters, and these monsters never quite go away, and they've hurt a lot of people. I think of all the young girls and the women that have got surgery to look like a Kardashian, all from a sex tape. But it's kind of Hugh too. Everything about him was kept quiet and on the down low. And even my friend that said that she used to go there all the time, she didn't see anything like that. Except my friend went one night, and I've mentioned this before, she got drugged. So, who's. I believe both. I believe it both could be true at the same location with the same people. I really do. I think that my friend wasn't the type to party. You know, she wouldn't have been accepting drinks from strangers. And she wasn't starstruck because she herself was kind of, famous too in her own way. She had her own fame and her own success. So that interview is going to be coming up we already did the interview. We're editing together. So this next week. But she is somebody that hung around there and didn't see anything weird. But she's kind of like she's innocent. She really is. Even now, she's very innocent. She doesn't do drugs. She doesn't party. She doesn't do any of that. At one time, she ate a bunch of junk food. That was like the worst thing she's ever done. And she played a prostitute on like whatever. Can't remember the name of that show. Okay, so I'm trying to get other people's views of the Playboy Mansion. And I'm going to talk to someone that used to be working at the Playboy Club. We'll get there. I've been physically sick, so it's been very difficult for me to kind of keep up with all of this. But the Shannon Twins were two beautiful young women. Still are. They're still very young. They're like 34 now, which is crazy. It seems like forever. It was 13 years ago. Okay, so they arrived after getting scouted, basically. I think Hef was looking for some twins. Every guy's fantasy, every guy wants to have twins. And they found them. They were working at some bar that's kind of like Hooters, but not Hooters, but the same type of situation where it was based on like sexuality, if you're a sexy woman and, sex. That's, some men could only eat hot wings with breast in their face. Yeah, it's just a man thing. Woman thing too. Women like it too, I guess, but it's just the way it is. Our whole society is kind of based on that. But Hugh made a lot of money off of that, but he also created this lifestyle that most men can never, actually the majority of men can't have, and wouldn't really want, because it's a lot to keep up. Because there's men that could have done that, could have gone the same route as him. I think of Bezos or people like that, and I think, God, they have so much money. If they wanted to, they could have a harem. They could have a bunch of women doing whatever the fuck they want, just having sex with everyone, just, but they chose the other route, which was just to be, at least publicly with just one person, and selfish and going to the moon. Actually, they didn't go to the moon, they just went to space. Yeah. So he was somebody who was like, you know what, I'm just going to live this Playboy lifestyle. And he did it. And he did it really well. And he hurt people. And I believe that. I believe these women. I don't think that they would have anything to lie about. I don't see the reason for it. if they were getting paid millions of dollars maybe to tell their story, I would maybe believe it. But they're on like A&E. They don't really pay you much. And these women would have no reason to come forward, and especially in this light. You know what I mean? I think it would be better for them to come forward saying good things about him, thinking that they could get connections, thinking that these celebrities will want them or cast them or photograph them or whatever. Hugh had a lot of connections. And so to go against him and say hurtful, mean things that are true wouldn't be to their benefit. So, especially these girls. So they were young. They liked to party. They went to the Playboy Mansion. I guess he invited them by sending them an old school letter. Yeah, they said that specifically. It was an old school letter, which, was just written. That's what old school means. It was just a written letter and saying, will you be my girlfriends? Like he's in junior high. And they're like, oh my God. And we get to be on the show and we get to live at the mansion. It's like, they said it was like a Disneyland for adults. They're like, oh my God, we'll never have to worry again. They grew up with their grandma raising them. They didn't know their mother really, didn't have a relationship with their real mother or their father. They grew up poor, and thankfully for them that they were pretty, like really beautiful. And so they were able to kind of use that to get by. And some women are like, well, why didn't they just go to college? Because they had the looks to kind of get them by, and they weren't raised in that kind of environment where going to college would have been an option. Not that they weren't smart enough, but I think that they had dreams. Go to Hollywood, be famous. Everyone's so different. You can't really judge them. And they said that they were obsessed with the show. They were big fans. They loved Kendra the most. And that's a dream for them, to be like, oh my God, we're going to be on the show. We're going to have so much money. We're going to be famous. And they didn't even consider, they weren't even thinking about, oh, we're going to have to sleep with Hef. They thought that, being his girlfriends, that they would just do that for the show, like it was all for show. So they said they got there and right away it was work, and they weren't playmates yet. I think they were about to be. I think they had to sleep with him to get that. I'm not sure. They made it seem that way though, and a lot of them have, And so so they show up there, they're filming a show. They said that Holly was super sweet and upbeat and all of that positive when the cameras were rolling. And when they stopped rolling, she was like, yeah, fuck this. And she was like herself, like, ugh. So then they realized, they're like, okay, this is like fantasy. This isn't even real. And they had to entertain, they had to go to the party. They had to be with Hef. So Kendra, I guess, which I could totally picture this happening. I think Kendra and Holly were there, but Kendra's the one with the weed, and she's like, twins, like, I'm just thinking of how she'd be, twins, I got some pot. Do you want to come up and hang out with Hef? Let's go. Let's do it. Let's get stoned. So they all went up to the room. Holly was there. And as soon as they started smoking pot, those two bailed. Holly and Kendra. They're like, we're out of here. They just had to lure her up there. Lure them, I should say, up there. And so they were stuck along with Hugh. So when my friend said that he doesn't offer drugs or what have, he doesn't do drugs, I'm thinking, he does though. Even Holly said that he offered her Quaaludes. So he gave these girls Quaaludes, and he took one himself, Holly said, and other people have said it too, that he took some Quaaludes in the car, in the limo. It was kind of well known. So it's weird that he didn't want, okay, I get it now. I get it. He didn't want street drugs, I think, in his, in his place, which is understandable considering that they tried to get him on drug trafficking. They tried to get, yeah, so I'm thinking about it. I'm like, okay, street drugs I get, like heroin, meth, all of that. I think he was like, fuck that shit, keep it away from me. But legal pills, Quaaludes or what have you, or I think they're sleeping pills, he thought was okay. So it wasn't all drugs. And so people didn't see people like smoking crack there. Of course not. Why would they? If they got raided, they'd be so screwed. So pot, I think they just smoked some pot. And even that, I think they only did it privately in the rooms. Not sure. Okay, so they get lured up to the room by Kendra and they bail and leave the twins there. And they really never had spent time alone with him yet. It was all for show. It was all for the show, literally the show. And they felt really uncomfortable and were really nervous. And they told him, they're like, we're really nervous. He's like, oh, have some Quaaludes. Just like, here, I have he had a little cup of them next to his bed or something. He gave them some Quaaludes, and the next thing you know, they said they were more wasted than they've ever been in their entire lives. They've never felt that way. They were just out of it. And then remember his hand was all shaking, and he was forcing their head, both of them, with each shaky hand down to his crotch, to his cock. And he wanted them both to give him head. That's another male fantasy. You see it in porn sometimes. Yes, I watch porn sometimes. Who doesn't? But there's always like two girls on the same guys. I don't even know how that works. It's this is raw talk. Okay, this is how it works. I think one of them sucks the balls and the other one sucks the cock. There you go. Yeah. So that's what I think they were doing. They were both down there. And he wanted them to hook up. They were like, that's ancestral. That's gross. We're sisters. And I do think that's kind of gross when sisters or brothers or whoever hooks up like that. But, this is the Playboy Mansion. You do what you're told. Okay, so Crystal Harris, she was there and she replaced Madison as Hefner's #1 girlfriend. And she later became the Playboy founder's third and final wife. And Hefner also began a relationship with the 18-year-old twins, which is, the Shannon Twins. I just gross out. I'm sorry. I'm just taking it all in because I saw all the episode. But reading it out like this, it's like, wow. They were like two barely legal twin sisters. Yeah, they weren't even old enough to drink yet. So to cope with all of this, they would get wasted every day, all day. And, I could see that. I didn't watch the show. I watched like a few minutes of the first episode of the original cast. And I thought, this is freaking creepy as fuck. They're normalizing the fact that these women are all dating the same old man. I don't care if he's rich. I don't care if he's famous. It's not something I would do. It's not that I'm better. It's not that I look down upon them necessarily. I think that everyone has their reasons. But Crystal's, I'm gonna say it. She's a gold digger, and I'll say it again and again and again. Why else would you date like a 91-year-old? No, I think he was 98 at the time. No. When she married, I'm trying to think of when she married him, how old he was. I don't know how she did it. I don't know how long those little blue pills work for. If you're in your 90s, you're still doing that? I don't know. So he was 80 something years old when he was having sex with women. Those ones. Yeah, he was like 60 plus years his junior. So they met him and they're thinking, oh, he's like a sweet old man. Like that's what they were thinking. They were just, and there's somewhere inside of them that knew the reality. I think they all did, but they didn't want to believe it. Who does? It ruins the fantasy. So they went there and they're thinking, we are going to live in this mansion. We are going to be on TV. We're going to be in the magazine. And, Hugh, he has all these women around him and he's old. He probably doesn't want to like sleep with us, So yeah, he did. And they caught chlamydia from him and he doesn't like to use protection, I guess. And So they said that one of them got knocked up by him, and she was just horrified and grossed out with her own body, and she's like, I need to get an abortion, this is disgusting. She didn't want to tell him because he had enough, he already had so much control over her and them in general. So if you're on the show and you live in the manse, if you live in the manse, you're on the show and you're in the magazine, he owns your ass. Like literally, you would lose everything if you left. And so that's what they were thinking. They're like, well, we could walk out, but we'd be back in Florida with nothing. And what about grandma? What about our mother? That's what they called her. How are we going to take care of her? And we'd lose all of this that we've always wanted in our whole lives. This is what we wanted. And they just got drunk to deal with it and did drugs, whatever they did. I don't know. So that was their way. That was their coping mechanism. And I could totally see that. You know, it doesn't surprise me. It's just sad, you know. So he was like 60 some years older, and he gave them chlamydia because they didn't like to use protection. So they started using like wet, soapy towels, like in this little bowl. And after they would have sex, or before whatever, they would use that. I'm thinking that's not going to help you. If soapy hot water helped, a lot of people wouldn't be having venereal diseases. That doesn't really do much. But for them, it made them feel better. Like, it's just gross. Just fucking nasty. Just the nastiest shit ever. I wonder how many women had to get abortions because of him. So, one of them, one of the sisters, I should be specific, I should say. It's almost like 4 o'clock in the morning. No, it's 3 o'clock in the morning. Okay, which one was the one that got knocked up by him? That's the question. Who had lived in the mansion, they had lived in the mansion for 2 years, beginning in their late teens, which 18, 19. That's what people aren't really considering, that they're still teenagers. They're still teens, 18, 19. They're not even legal enough to drink. So one of them said, I think it was Carissa. No, yeah. To me, it's like rape, she said. He used control mechanisms completely through everything. Carissa also opened up about having an abortion so Carissa's the one that had the abortion. Opened up about having an abortion after becoming pregnant by Hefner when she was 19. I felt disgusted with my body. Yeah, that's what I said. She was so happy she made the decision to terminate the pregnancy. I felt like there was something like an alien growing inside of me. Like Rosemary's Baby. Just like a little devil child. I don't know what she felt, because I know what that feels like. To be... I was actually like raped, but there's different types of abuse, different types of rape. And for her, she felt like he controlled her. He manipulated her. Yeah, it's, I don't think you could really put every single rape into one category. She felt like she was violated. And they were very young, like I said. So I look at that and I'm thinking, what was I thinking when I was that age? And I felt the same way. I felt really naive. I thought I wasn't. I thought I was really smart. And in a lot of ways I was. Like, I wouldn't take drinks from someone. I wouldn't take pills from someone. At that point, by the time I was 18, I'd already been there, done that. And I was like, oh, hell no. I don't want your drink. You take your fucking drink and shove it up your, But they, they were young, so they just partied. So they were the fun party girls. That's what they became. They claimed they were plied with drugs before their first sexual encounter. Yeah, leaving them the most abbreviated we've ever been. So all the girlfriends kind of talk about similar things. The thigh openers, which was the drugs, thigh openers. He kind of used the same references. There was nothing healthy about sex with Hefner because he took it so far. He was He was taking the girl next door and he was soiling her. okay, so these women, they're now 32 or so. They have post-traumatic stress disorder still. They're just not even able to cope. And their mom died, who was their grandma, and that's all they have is each other. And thank God they have that. So they're in therapy, they're dealing with their issues. I feel badly for them. I really do. I think that if the shows like didn't kind of portray the show as being something wholesome in some way, you know, something to desire, people like that wouldn't grow up idolizing these women that they didn't know were just sleeping with them and putting on a good show. Oh. So, yeah, there's so many things that contribute to these women getting abused. And yes, I have people that confront me on here and say, well, don't they take responsibility for any of their actions? They're adults, they knew right from wrong. It's true. Absolutely. I agree with that. I think that these women do say, you know what? I knew it was wrong and I did it anyways because I was so enthralled with the situation, the glamour, hue, and all the celebrities and the money or whatever. And the funny thing is that they weren't even really realizing that they weren't really getting paid that much. You know, they were getting, I think it was 1,000 a week. And the twins, they didn't want to be his girlfriend anymore. They're like, you know what? We don't want to, we want to move. We don't want to be a part of this anymore. He's like, okay, well, I'll move you across the street to the bunny house, which I didn't even know existed until they talked about it. He moved them to the bunny house and he cut their, not salary, he cut their allowance is what it was. He cut their allowance in half to 500 a week. So that would be like 2,000 a month. That wouldn't be enough to keep me there. I'd be like, really? Fuck this. So I don't know what made them finally leave, what brought them to that point. They don't really get into great detail. They just said that they were really sick of the lifestyle. They were tired. They felt used up. They were drained. Also, they talked about a movie they did. And I kind of remember the movie. Sofia Coppola, who I used to know pretty well back in the day. It's a great director. I didn't like this movie in particular. You know, I remember trying to watch it on cable and I thought, oh, this. But the Virgin Suicides were so good. And there's so many other. Lost in Translation. I mean, she's great. And they got a role in her movie as, I guess they played strippers that did house calls and hotel calls. For the main character was like he played himself basically, Stephen Dwarf, whatever his name is. Yeah, he was an actor that called two women to come over and dance for him. So they got the role and they were super excited, which they should be. That's kind of cool that they were in a movie. And in this show, they highlighted it. And Sophia went to the manse and met Hugh, and he's like, oh, I'm a big fan of your father's. You know, it was like, what a dick, you know. He, like, women can't do whatever. But they said that he seemed to be kind of jelly, you know, because his whole life he's always wanted to be in movies. He's wanted to make movies. He wanted to be famous. And so this is the way he did it. But they just, you know, they were trying to get their own thing going, which most of the women ended up doing, you know, so he didn't like that they were in a movie. And so he tried to belittle the fact that it was like, yeah, it was the daughter, not the the godfather of filmmaking or what have you. And so, yeah, and you see these women and they had to get plastic surgery because that's what everyone has to do with him. They had to get their boobs done, their noses done. I thought they were perfect the way they were. You know, without the bleach blonde hair, the fake tan, the boobs, all of it. There's like that look that he wanted. Pamela Anderson, basically. That's like the fantasy. Every guy's fantasy. Especially Hugh, though. He really loved that. And so when they went there, he was making plans already for them to get their surgeries. So now, they're in therapy. They put on a little weight, but they look healthy. They seem like they're really supportive of each other. And all of this time is still, it's still hurtful to them. They still get teary-eyed. It's emotional. So, yeah, this is what he left behind. All of these women that are just destroyed. But there are some people that have positive things to say. And so I'm not going to nullify that and say, oh, well, that never happened. Nothing good happened there. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of good things did happen there as well. But the bad is outweighing the good at this point for me. Looking at it, I'm like, fuck. She's like, you should have come. She was invited. And she didn't want to go either at first. And then she started going here and there. And I said, I got invited too. We all did, I think. And my friend got drugged that night, but it doesn't mean necessarily that would have happened to me. I would have helped her out. I would have definitely been watching over her. That's what I did with all my friends, because I didn't want them taking drinks from strangers. I would have been like, oh, no, no, don't take that drink, girl. Put it down. And, like, have a beer, but open it yourself, So, yeah, I feel really badly for these girls. I feel like they're still going through it. And that's it. Episode 11. And I think Monday's episode 12. God, why the fake tan, though? I did it when I was younger. I was really obsessed with tanning. I think we all go through that stage, but it doesn't, I realize now, I'm like, it doesn't look good. It's orangey. Look. Like Trump's face, how it's kind of orange. I don't know. All the women, they look the same. Look at all of them look the same. I would think they're like triplets. Okay, so that's my take on episode 11, and I'm going to bed. I'm actually really tired. So I'll get back to you with episode 12, and we could discuss it. And yes, I'm going to get some people that say these are grown women. They should have known better. They knew what they were getting into. Maybe so. Yeah, they knew on some level. I think they knew. But at the same time, they were still abused and manipulated. And I don't think that's right in any way, shape, or form. All right.